It's been a few years now since Oklahoma State's Ollie Gordon won the Doak Walker Award, chasing that elusive 2,000 yards on the ground. Now the RBU conversation stays alive at OSU with Mr. Caleb Hawkins, especially if we're calling him Caleb 2K by the end of the year.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, our Big 12 brethren? Shout out to the regulators. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Alldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Mazda. Mazda puts the same drive into every single detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward with Mazda, because there's more to Mazda when there's also more to you. Now we get to talk about this conversation. RBU at Oklahoma State has been a thing for a significant amount of time. I know words are still hard for me. Oklahoma State currently has 19 Cowboys that have rushed for over 2,000 yards. It's insanely difficult to do it in a season, especially whenever you have an explosive offense that can do some things through the air. But I also think that is why Caleb Hawkins could, in fact, get to that 2,000-yard mark. If you're factoring the receiving game, I think he does probably get there. But 2,000 yards on the ground, that's a difficult proposition. But I do think there are some things that lead to him potentially getting that. So the PFF grades have came out, and Caleb Hawkins was ranked number 1 in the country this previous season with a grade of 92.6. Fun fact, Cam Cook was also on this list at number 5 in the country. He is now transferred to West Virginia. So that'll be pretty exciting to see on the season. But Caleb Hawkins is a name that everyone's talking about across the country. And I do think there's a lot of similarities between him and Ollie Gordon. Coming in at 6'2", 205 pounds, very comparable to Ollie. He runs very upright. Again, very comparable to Ollie. He doesn't mind mixing it up. He has the ability to shake and shift and do some things with some cutback lanes, but he will also lay his head down and hammer away almost like a Cam Scadaboo. So the excitement surrounding Caleb Hawkins is very warranted. But I also think that when you look at Oklahoma State in comparison to maybe in North Texas, there's going to have to be some times where he has massive games. And if you take a look back at some of the Oklahoma State record books, I think if you compare Caleb Hawkins to some of the Oklahoma State greats, or at least what he did at North Texas, when it came to carries, he had 231 carries. In comparison at Oklahoma State, for him to get where he needs to get, that would put him right around that 7th-ish range. And I think it's very feasible, but I also think you have to take into consideration Katie Batman Jones and some of the other running backs that could factor into this equation. But at 231 carries, that would put him right around that 7th range. So I think it's viable that he gets that here at Oklahoma State. He had 231. So that would put him right below 8th place when it comes to attempts. I think that's a possibility in this season. There's going to be a couple games where he has massive input. And I think that the beginning of the schedule sets that up. We have some redemption for the Tulsa game. Is he going to break Barry Sanders' record of 332 yards in a game? Probably not. But this could look very comparable to Chuba Hubbard, 296 yards against Kansas State. He's going to have some of those games. I think Murray State is another one of these opportunities for him to pop off and have one of these massive games. So if he does have 200 yards versus Tulsa and 200 plus versus Murray State, then I think this conversation of him getting to 2,000 in the year is very doable. Single season of rushing, of course, you got Barry Sanders. You got Chuba Hubbard. He was the last person to rush for over 2,000. Terry Miller had 1887, or Ernest Anderson, 1877. Thurman Thomas again, Terry Miller again, Thurman Thomas again, Gerald Hudson, Kendall Hunter. Ollie Gordon would factor right into this equation above Terry Miller, right under Thurman Thomas. So he would be 6th place with his 1,732 yards from a few seasons ago. And we need this uptick. The RBU conversation needs to continue at Oklahoma State. And the beauty of it, Caleb Hawkins has a ton of opportunities. He has a ton of time because he's only a sophomore. And, his 6.2 yards per clip would have put him at 5th place at Oklahoma State behind Barry Sanders, Vernon Morency, Keith Toston, and Dontrell Savage, right above Kendall Hunter, above Chuba Hubbard, above Tatum Bell, above Thurman Thomas. That is some elite company, but he could find himself there. Another reason that I think it's going to be imperative to talk about him in the receiving category. I think that Oklahoma State has done a remarkable job in the transfer portal, bringing over a lot of these wide receivers that should, in fact, help Drew Mestemaker move the ball down the field. And that is the thing. When they don't respect your ability to push the ball down the field, they're going to load the box. That's what happened to Oklahoma State basically the last 3 seasons. But I think if you add somebody that's elusive and quick like Chris Barnes, that's a very good replacement for what we're losing in Gavin Freeman. Justin Bowick, coming over from Illinois, is rated as one of the top transfer portal additions for Oklahoma State at 6'4", 210 pounds, being a red zone target that he already was at Illinois. I think that gets better at Oklahoma State. He's got his reliable buddy, Miles Coleman. You bring in another 6'2", 215-pound wide receiver with Rodney Harris II out of Ohio. Matrell Lopez is back at 6 foot, 185 pounds. You bring in 6 foot, 280-pound Israel Polk. Cam Powell's coming back over 6 foot. You got Jabari Thornton at 6 foot. Quincy Shelton at 6 foot. Wyatt Young at 6 foot. And then you got to talk about the tight end position. We haven't utilized the tight end since Blake Jarwin before he was rocking and rolling for the Dallas Cowboys. Bringing Oscar Hammond back and bringing in Donovan Green should do a lot of things to open up space for Caleb Hawkins and that backfield to make some magical things happen. I think the only limiting factor on Caleb Hawkins, getting close to that Ollie Gordon mark, right, 1,700 yards, 1,800 yards, pushing that 2,000, is going to be the split reps with the other running backs. That's going to be the only thing, because if you noticed, Caleb Hawkins, in his 1,400-yard rushing season, he wasn't even the starter for the first 2 games. So he didn't really get any carries until game 3. From game 3 on, he was a focal point of the offense, but he was still a true freshman. So it wasn't like, they were game planning things on behalf of Caleb Hawkins. I do think the defenses are going to have to do that at Oklahoma State. Therefore, that passing game is going to open things up for these dudes. I think another thing that I feel personally is going to be an upgrade for Caleb Hawkins is the offensive line. I mean, he's going to have guys like Desmond Magia coming with him from North Texas, Braden Nelson coming over from North Texas. I think that trust, that familiarity is going to go a long way. But you bring in 6'7", 320-pounder from Michigan State, Ashton Lepo. You get Caleb Hackelman back. You get Jacoby Sanders back. You got Cole Seaton coming back. You got Jacob Sexton at 6'6", 335 pounds coming over from OU. I think these additions are precisely why this conversation of him getting to that 2,000-yard mark, it's possible. I get Johnny Dixon, another one of his tried and true buddies from North Texas coming over. Miguel Chavez decided to stick around. Louis Canepa coming back is absolutely massive. Louis Canepa was supposed to be one of the focal points, especially of the interior of the offensive line. And due to injuries, it didn't exactly happen for Louis. So I think this continuity with some of these North Texas dudes coming over is going to be huge. That'll help them get to 2K. The ability to spread the field with all of the wide receivers and the tight ends, that should help Caleb Hawkins potentially get to 2K. The improvements on the offensive line from what he had at North Texas, I think that is another reason why he could get to 2K. And lastly, I think it's going to be the decision-making of Drew Mestemaker. Drew Mestemaker, I think, very well understands how big of a weapon Caleb Hawkins is, but he also very well understands that it's his responsibility to put the ball in positions that give Caleb Hawkins the most success. If teams are going to load the box, great. Drew Mestemaker is going to have a heyday. If teams are going to play, soft coverage to some degree, then that takes numerical advantages out of the box, which opens things up for Caleb Hawkins to get to this 2,000-yard marker. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Getting to 2K is a possibility. Another factor is if Oklahoma State puts himself in a position to play for a Big 12 title, that's extra games. That's extra snaps. That's extra opportunities for Caleb to hit that 2,000-yard mark. And then, something crazy could happen, and we could flip the script entirely and do what ESPN thinks we might do, end up in the CFP that is, once again, more games. Some of these greats like Thurman and Barry, they didn't have the advantage of having 12, 13 ball games. Caleb Hawkins could potentially have that. And I think that is why him getting to 2K is a possibility. If you count receiving yards, It's almost a given if he stays healthy. But I think if you factor in all of these other things and you compare it to what he did at North Texas, it's not even in the same hemisphere. Is it an upgrade in competition in the Big 12? 100%. But you look at those other linemen that we brought in and those guys like Jacoby Sanders that are sticking around, Louis Canepa, Caleb Hackelman, Jacoby Sanders. I think a lot of that will have a huge benefit to Caleb Hawkins. So we could have another RBU conversation at OSU if Caleb Hawkins gets to that 2K conversation. Speaking of conversational pieces, if you have a Mazda, it's a conversational piece. If you don't have a Mazda, get that, right? Have that conversational piece. They are always moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's just on the screen. Mazda reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar consistently. It's the extra work off the court, off the floor, off the field, dialing in every single detail, giving it that extra fine print fire, that grit, that never quit attitude. Mazda puts that same passion into every single model. Highlights make the reel. What it takes to get there is what makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. So get with Mazda today. Cowboys and Cowgirls have basketball games this evening, and the Cowboys absolutely have to have a win. Right before we did this recording, I saw a CBS, first four in, first four out. Oklahoma State was classified as one of the first four out, according to CBS. Losing to Arizona, that's not necessarily that big of a deal. The way we lost, yeah, that's a big deal, but you have to be able to respond. If you're going to be a tournament team, the way that you respond is going to be pretty important, and Oklahoma State is in a must-win scenario against a team that likes to pressure all of the way up the court, a team that likes to play a 2-3 zone to kind of limit some of your ability to play inside out. They limit your ability to get free looks on the perimeter. But Oklahoma State has so much in front of them that I'm insanely excited. Because if you do, in fact, get this W, you're currently sitting in 10th place. Common consensus typically is if you're in the Big 12, you got to be hovering in that top 8-ish range. If you are, you're going to have an opportunity to punch a ticket. Oklahoma State is currently sitting at 10th, but here's the beauty of it. Right above us is TCU, who we should have beat. We should have beat them in Fort Worth. So that's a game you have to get back, and we have TCU coming up. We already beat BYU. They're right above TCU. So that's a good notch on the belt. We have Cincinnati that doesn't necessarily lay down for anybody, but it should be a W. Colorado is below us, so that should be a W. West Virginia and UCF right above us. But again, so TCU, West Virginia, UCF, BYU, these are the teams that we're chasing. We need to win this game tonight against Arizona State. If you do that, then you're up against a team that is battling for one of these coveted NCAA tournament spots with you that you owe a whooping to, which is TCU. In Gallagher-Iba. Then you have Kansas. They just beat the number one team in the country without their best player, Darren Peterson. So the likelihood of Oklahoma State getting a dub, even though they struggle at times in Gallagher-Iba under Bill Self, probably unlikely. Then we get to a gimme game. Colorado, you have to have it. It's a game that you should win. They're a scrappy bunch, but it's a game you got to have. And then you have West Virginia. Is a must-have. It's a must-have game for Oklahoma State. And then right after that, you get Cincinnati, who we just talked about. All right, they're tough, but it should be a dub. Then you get UCF. Again, we already got one victory over UCF on the road. Everybody in the country is talking about how UCF is a slept-on team that isn't getting talked about enough, that is a tournament-worthy team. I agree, but we have a W against them. So the teams that we're fighting, West Virginia, TCU, UCF, BYU. We just had the BYU dub. We get TCU next after this Arizona State game. Then after Kansas, we get Colorado, then West Virginia. Then we got to beat Cincinnati. Then you get UCF. And then you end the season with Houston in Gallagher-Iba Arena. Some of these games are gettable. The games that we need to get are gettable. The teams right in front of us, we get to play, or we just played. Getting that victory over BYU didn't get enough publicity for the players, for the effort that they put in. But this response has to be massive. This needs to be a big game for Oklahoma State. squad show dudes talked about you got to have a guy. You got to have a guy that can put the game on their shoulders and take those shots, those Cade Cunningham, Marcus Smart style shots. I think we found that in Anthony Roy. And call me crazy, but it appears as though that the relationship between Roy and Miller, it might be getting better. If it's getting better and we have two guys that we can rely upon to hit that 25, 30 burger point total, we're going to have an opportunity to do some things. The beauty of the schedule is the teams that we're chasing, we get to play. And then again, you mix in KU in there, you mix in Houston in there. We could shock the world. We could shock ourselves and pull out something crazy because they are both at home. And the number one thing that I've always been hooting and hollering about when we were searching for the coach was protect Gallagher. I didn't care if you lost every away game. You need to protect the Gallagher. And the biggest games that we have remaining, national view-wise, are at home. And likewise, the Cowgirls have a big opportunity here because they're currently sitting in 5th place. They very well could be in a position to climb into that top 3 range, which could be huge for seeding. But I think that the women's side of things is actually a little bit more open than the men's, right? I think whenever you look at what JC Hoyt's been able to do, protecting the home floor seems to be of utmost importance. When we get hot, we can play with anybody in the country. We can beat anybody in the country if our shooting is good. I know that's kind of a ridiculous statement because anybody can beat anybody if your shooting is good. But typically, we don't struggle in the shooting department. So currently, we're sitting in 5th with Texas Tech right above us, West Virginia, TCU, and Baylor. And then Iowa State is right on our heels. So is Utah, realistically. And the beauty for the Cowgirls is they get Kansas State in Manhattan and Kansas today. And then they get number 16, Texas Tech, in Gallagher-Iba Arena. Then you get Utah in Gallagher-Iba Arena. Then you go on the road to take on number 19, West Virginia. Then you have Iowa State also on the road in Ames before you end the season with KU at home. So much like the men's team, the girls that we're fighting with for those, the top 3, top 2 spots, we basically get to play. We get to play Tech. We get to play Utah. We get to play West Virginia. We get to play Iowa State. And then I guess you could say we have to end the season playing KU. How terrible would that be to end the season with a loss to KU? But the fun of March Madness has kind of already started for us. Women's team is going to be in the tournament, no questions asked. It'll be just basically what seed. But they still have their eyes on a Big 12 title. And I think that the race for the Big 12 title is somewhat achievable. I mean, Baylor seems to be kind of above everybody. TCU is right there. Baylor has 2 losses. We only have 4 losses. So it would take Baylor and TCU dropping an A game in 2 games and us winning out. It would, but it's a possibility. So the women's team is still chasing a Big 12 title, whether it be regular season or postseason. The men's team is still on the bubble, and I agree with CBS being right there in the first 4 out, which means if you win the games you're supposed to win, you're probably in the tournament. I don't even necessarily think you need a massive upset over KU or Houston to get in. Just take care of your business. Beat the teams that are right next to you, that are fighting for the same position as you. Because, yeah, some of these teams like TCU and West Virginia, they've got talent. But I don't think that they have the shooting that Oklahoma State does. When Victorious gets hot, when Roy gets hot, I don't think that there's very many teams in the country that can stop that. It's a question of down low. Parsifala is a beast. He is the unquestioned leader of the team because we had that stretch where he wasn't playing and we looked night and day different. If nothing else, he is the captain. He is the leader of the ball club. But sometimes we don't have a bunch of dudes to play with 7-footers. That's just not who we are. So we need the shots to be falling. And yeah, it's still a pretty exciting time. We haven't even been in the conversation of first 4 out in years. So this is amazing. Regardless of how it shakes out, we're in this position and we haven't been in years. We haven't had an opportunity to even talk about being a tournament team since basically Cade Cunningham. The year after Cade, when Oklahoma State went through the ban, I think that roster with Musa Cisse and those dudes, I think that roster was good enough to make some things happen. But when they realized they couldn't play in the NCAA tournament or the Big 12 tournament, you could just see a massive exhale. That's the last time we've even been in the conversation here. So is first four out cool? No. Is it currently, given the predicament we've been in? I think so, yes. And I think the Cowboys are a tournament team. We're definitely good enough to get there. And we need that cachet because the recruiting has gotten better. Well, it's basically been what it's always been. Recruiting the Gal Grab is easy peasy. But you got to have some of the wins to go alongside of it. That win versus BYU got totally railroaded because of the chant. Now we've got the fine. And after that loss to Arizona, that BYU win's getting swept under the rug, probably a little bit too much. This whole BYU thing, it's getting swept under the rug, maybe a little bit too much. Before we get to that, it's hiring time. And you and I both know that Indeed is the bee's knees, as I like to say, for all of your hiring needs. But TurboTax is probably the best whenever you're trying to get your taxes done. I know. I just flipped the script on you and went from Indeed to Turbo. So here we are. But TurboTax are the experts that you need. They can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, and you can get rid of the stress or the guesswork of whether it's going to be done right. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s, self-employment forms, and they help you with every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go on about your day, and get updates right in the middle of their TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling all of it for you. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If your TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. You're good to go. Take the taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your local appointment today. Get with TurboTax because tax season is stressful. Get rid of the stress. All right. So Oklahoma State has put out their statement in regards to the chant. And y'all know I've had a somewhat unpopular opinion on this show, which has been, I think we deserve to fine because we tried to ride that line too much and get too cute and it was too close. But at the same point in time, I did expect, whether it be President Hess or AD Chad Weiberg, I did expect somebody to come out with some kind of statement, which they did. And it's not the statement I thought we were going to get. So perhaps we could get more of it. Here's the statement from Oklahoma State University. The university conducted an immediate investigation into the allegation with a group of students that used inappropriate chant during last Wednesday's men's basketball game between O State and BYU. It was determined that a derogatory chant followed a disputed call and referred to the Mormon faith in relation to game officials. The reference to religion did not meet our standards and expectations. Oklahoma State respects the Big 12's decision and will not appeal the fine. The Cowboy Code calls us to treat others with respect and dignity. Oklahoma State University values the relationship we have with BYU and deeply respects its community and faith. We will continue to work to ensure that the atmosphere at our events reflects the values of the Cowboy family. Going back to that second paragraph, the reference to religion did not meet our standards and expectations, and it was referenced the Mormon faith in relation to game officials. So they kind of brushed over, oh, and by the way, we weren't really saying the F word, right? But I think it should have been a little bit bigger, a little bit more bravado. Say it with your chest. I think the national conversation is not going to be that we said ref's a Mormon, unless I think we back the student body that was the 98% of the student body that was participating in the refs portion. I don't like that Oklahoma State is being lumped into some of these other places that do say that, because as I said in my live show, it would blow my ever-loving mind if anybody in our fan base actually said, F the Mormons. So the more that came out, the more it accentuated the point that, yeah, it was probably just a handful of people, which is why we deserve the fine. We're college students. We should be academically astute enough to know that if you even ride that line, there's going to be a couple that run off into left field and make it problematic. So we did deserve it. But I also wish that we would be a little bit more vocal about, hey, we need to separate Oklahoma State from these other places that do say the F word in that chant. Should we see, words are still hard for me, be referencing anybody in regards to faith in a somewhat derogatory way, or trying to be cute in a chant? No, we shouldn't. And hopefully, I don't know, our student body realizes that trying to be unnecessarily cute is what caused this. But unfortunately, they don't care. I doubt it. Like, as a college student at one point in time myself, if my university got fined $50,000, it has nothing to do with me. I mean, yeah, it stinks, but I'm not getting fined anything. And if my buddies didn't throat punch me repeatedly for being one of the few people saying the F word, then what retribution do I have as a student to not do it again? I mean, I get it. You have to have these fines. You have to do something. It's embarrassing that Oklahoma State's even in this position. It's embarrassing that we have a handful of fans that decided to make this thing overly complicated. But there does need to be a distinction between refs a Mormon and F the Mormons, because that is, it infuriates me when I hear it, when I've heard it in the past. So, I don't know. I just wish that our university was a little bit more vocal. Again, verbiage-wise, they did cover kind of that we didn't exactly do what people think we did. But now that there's been a fine associated with it, again, people nationally, they're not going to care. They're just going to say, yeah, of course you were saying F the Mormons because you got fined for it. I think we just need to be a little bit more vocal about, yes, we did something dumb, but no, we didn't do what other people nationally are accusing us of doing. I don't know. Semantics, perhaps. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. Oh, I might go live after tonight's basketball games. It'll be late, though, right? So if you want to jump in on a live late show, I reckon we might do that this evening. Anyway, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there. You're everything. Without you, none of this would work. I mean, you know the drill. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, taters.